was a preemie and I was sick a lot growing up. When I was 25 years old, I had just given birth to my daughter. I was feeling very weak and my stomach was not feeling well all the time. When I sat on the toilet, I felt dizzy. Suddenly, a large amount of blood flowed into the toilet. When I looked into the toilet, I was terrified. I felt like I was going to die. I was so frightened by the scene before me that I closed my eyes and prayed. I prayed to God, "Don't let me die like this, my daughter still needs me." I fainted and I slowly lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself traveling through a dark tunnel. I knew I was dead. I felt that there were many people around me. I don't know how to describe what they looked like. They seemed to be made of light, and I knew I was not alone. When I looked into the sky, I could see many stars. A man was standing behind me, and he put his hand on my shoulder. Suddenly, I saw a pinpoint of white light in the distance. Then the speed of my travel began to increase and that point of light became larger and larger until I entered it. I appeared in a room that had no ceiling. The room was filled with white light. I could not see the other people in the room, but I could hear them singing. I could also feel love and joy in this light. This part of the feeling is hard for me to describe, because it is completely indescribable. There is no joy that can be compared to this place. There are no words on earth that can describe it, so you can imagine it for yourselves. After I left that room, I found a very wide sidewalk that allowed 5 people to walk side by side. There were other people around me, but they didn't notice me. When I looked to my left, I could see majestic mountains and waterfalls. Below the peaks was a beautiful valley with many trees and meadows full of wildflowers. They have vibrant colors. If you think the colors on Earth are gorgeous, you are wrong. The colors here are much softer, some of which I have never even encountered, much less know how to describe them. As I continued walking, I saw a garden to the right of the meadow. It was filled with fruit trees, and the trees were full of fruit. My first impression was not that I wanted to taste the fruit, but that the sight before me was so beautiful. I left the sidewalk and was ready to look into the garden. Just then, a voice came from behind me and he told me to get back on the sidewalk. As I turned to look at him, I knew he was Jesus. He was wearing a white robe and sandals. He was very handsome, with long brown hair and a neat beard. He also looked very strong. Some people may wonder, how do you know that is him? I can only tell you that when you're in his presence, you don't wonder. We were sitting on the lawn. In front of us was the garden, and to our left was the valley and the waterfall. The sheer joy was irresistible. I felt like I was back home. He told me that I had work to do, that I couldn't stay here, that I needed to go back. I pleaded with him to let me stay. He reminded me that my children needed me. I continued to plead with him to let me stay. I heard someone call my name. At that moment, I felt like I was back in my body. My father was holding me and screaming my name. He later told me that when he found me, I was pale and covered in blood. It felt like I was dead. I was rushed to the hospital and operated on the next day. I later learned that when I went into labor, the doctor didn't clean out what was inside. I learned a lot from this incident. I savored this true memory, and after 20 years of probing the Bible, I understood what Jesus shared with me, That he wanted me to return to earth and remind everyone that heaven does exist. Death is not to be feared. God loves each and every one of us, and He is always there for us. Next is our second story. Again, a mother who was divorced early and struggling to live alone with her son. In the hospital, her heart stopped beating. Came to the other side. And finally came back. Let's hear her story together. I am now a 53-year-old woman. I have been divorced for many years. I live alone. I have a cat to keep me company. I am afflicted with multiple illnesses. I spend most of my time at home. I was unable to work outside and life had no meaning for me. Every day was a repetitive life. The local community arranged for volunteers to take care of me. The volunteers would come here 4 times a week. Although I am not very skilled at many tasks, the volunteers are very patient. The volunteers also talk to me a lot, which makes me feel very happy. I have a son who works in another city. He just got divorced a few months ago because his wife cheated on him. It was a big blow to him. I supported his decision to divorce and often comforted him on the phone. He is the only reason I am here. I was planning to end my life once his life was stable. When I was 31 years old, I suffered a very serious injury to my spine. I was unable to stand or walk. The doctors told me that I might never walk again. I felt like life was plunged into darkness. Why did I have to suffer so much? My husband and I divorced very early and I raised my son alone. He didn't pay his son's support on time. Then I heard from others, my ex-husband was arrested for robbery. To make life better for my son, I got 2 jobs. But now, I can no longer continue to work. Although the government gives some welfare payments, our life is still very difficult. As time goes by, my illness is getting worse. I was losing weight rapidly. No doctor could find out what was wrong with me, and there was no treatment or surgery that could help me. Because of my illness, I became more and more negative about life. This made me very desperate. I felt that there would never be love in my life again. One day, I suddenly felt tightness in my chest. It was very hard to breathe. It felt like I was going to die soon. Instead, I felt like it was a relief. But then, the volunteers found out. I was taken to the hospital. In the intensive care unit, many relatives came outside. I didn't realize how bad my condition was. Suddenly, the heart monitor made an ear-piercing sound. The wavy line turned into a straight line. Yes, my heart had stopped. I was dead. 5 doctors and nurses gathered around me. They pulled the curtain closed. I felt myself going farther and farther down. I had never been so relaxed. When I opened my eyes, I was in another world. I had never seen a place so pure. It was so peaceful and serene. I could tell there was no disease or pain here. There was nothing negative here. I could see that things around me seemed to be getting more and more perfect. There was a color here I had never seen before. Not to mention I didn't know how to describe it. As I continued drifting, I saw many people, but I couldn't tell their gender or age. Because they only had the outline of human beings. Each one radiated light. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to know what this place was. As I approached them, one person came toward me. She walked up to me and held my hand. The others stayed where they were. They looked as if they were talking to each other. The woman and I talked for a while, but I don't remember what we said. When I opened my eyes again, I felt pain. I looked around and I was back in the hospital. I felt very sad. I closed my eyes again because I wanted to go back to the feeling I had just felt. There was no response. It felt like a dream, but it was so real. One night, 11 years later, I was watching TV. Someone said they had a near-death experience. I gradually realized that this was happening to me too. The more I saw this on TV, the more I was sure it was real. When I tried to talk about it with others, I was met with questions. Doubts about whether things were really happening to me, or if I was just dreaming about it. Since that day, I have changed a lot of my thoughts and feelings. I am now unable to go to work normally. But I go to the hospital all the time. Talk to the patients there. I will share my experience to them. I hope I can help them. Death is not that scary. Don't be afraid of death. We talk to each other about death. I don't know why I am still alive today. My life has not been good and I still try to live. For the past few months, I've needed help going to the bathroom. My financial situation is very bad. Sometimes I ask God why He wants me back. I suffered physical pain and had to suffer mental loneliness. There were times when I did think about death. But I couldn't bear to leave my son. I don't fear death now. I think God is not willing to take me away. Maybe I still have work to finish. I share my story to more people. Don't lose hope in life, everything will turn out fine. I also believe that one day, I will return to my one true home. Death is not the end of life.